And a very good evening to everybody. Good evening on this Saturday, the 3rd of April. This is Christopher Daigan coming to you from our home in KwaZulu-Natal. And before I even get started, we already have a visitor. Yes, here is Lucy. Come on, Lucy. It's Easter weekend. Yes, be generous. Bring me on early in the program. Don't make me wait. There we go. We're just starting. Here's little Lucy. Lucy is going to say hello. Hello, Luce. You're going to wave a nice waggy paw. Yes, it's been very chilly today. It's Easter weekend and suddenly it's got cold, which means that we actually have to put a jersey on when we go outside sometimes. Oh, that's me, not you. You've got a big furry coat. Lucy's got a very big furry coat. When I say cold, it's actually 20 degrees, so it's actually not cold at all. It's a bit chillier than it normally is. So this evening's program of music in concert, this is the Easter weekend, and I have included and chosen a selection of music which is quite restrained, quite mellow, and I think you will enjoy it for those of you who are celebrating or acknowledging this weekend, and wishing everyone a happy Easter and a peaceful Easter weekend. So I have music for you by Mozart, Beethoven, Bach and Liszt. And Lucy looks like she's going to look at me for more attention. So I'm going to start off, not by Mozart, at least by Haydn. I'm going to start off with music by Haydn in the first part of the program, but I'm going to play some Bach for you before that. But I'd like to tell you just a little bit about why I've got a substantial work by Haydn and then another shorter work, a second movement on its own later. For many years, when I started Music Revival, I used to organize a series of concerts, a small festival, music festival of concerts every day over this Easter weekend. And one of the highlights and one of the regular features of this program, the Easter weekend program, was always a composition by Haydn after his oratorio, The Seven Last Words of Christ. Haydn wrote this piece, very substantial, quite a lengthy piece of music, but for chorus and orchestra, and a really grand piece of music, and then later rewrote it for string quartet, which was the version that I always heard. It was often played on this, that I organized and invited the string quartet to play on this weekend, the Easter weekend festival. And listening to this music, I was always struck by how incredibly imaginative, beautiful, poignant, really lyrical, romantic, full of excitement and drama, Haydn's music was in this composition that I heard every year. But then when I came back to look at some of the Haydn piano sonatas, and there are many of them, there are 50 or so, I always found, and often I heard people play Haydn, it just seemed to be somehow two-dimensional. And so this evening I'm going to play these two pieces, and I'm going to try and throw caution to the wind, sort of academic, what one should do, and really try and bring some of that excitement and see if I can actually infuse or bring some of that real romanticism and drama which you hear in Haydn's music elsewhere, which we don't often hear in the piano sonatas. And I don't think it has to do with the music. I often think it's got to do with the way in which they are played. And I think I'm going to put it this way, I'm going to try and play these pieces with a great sense of imagination and adventure. So before I play the first sonata ever, I'd like to start this evening's program with the very beautiful Bach chorale, Sheep May Safely Graze, originally written for soloist and orchestra. This is arranged by the pianist Egon Petri. Beautiful, steady rhythm, very gentle, tranquil, peaceful, pastoral melody to start this evening's program on the Saturday in concert for the Easter weekend. That was Sheep May Safely Grace from J.S. Bach's birthday cantata, as arranged by the pianist Egon Petri, the Dutch pianist. Now, the first sonata by Haydn that I'm going to play for you this evening is complete sonata in 3 movements. Out of the 50 or so sonatas that Haydn wrote, this is not very often played, but there is something very charming and interesting about this music that I like in terms of its expressivity, and also in terms of, I think, the depth, especially in the first movement, which is a slow movement. It starts with a slow movement with this very beautiful lilt, sort of Siciliano, a kind of lilting 6/8 rhythm, and then leads into a sprightly second movement, and then ends with a minuet, a tempo de minuetto, elegant dance. But throughout there's a broad lyricism, there's a general warmth and expressivity through all this music. There's not this crazy brilliance or this super energetic laughing mode which Haydn often goes into. And there's, I think, a sense of a core, of a heart and a warmth in this music, which I really find very interesting, and I thought would be perfect for this evening's program. What is interesting about it, just on a technical level actually, is that each movement starts with a similar grouping of notes. In the first movement, that's pattern of descending notes. In the second movement, from the, and in the third movement, it's almost the same notes, the same group of notes which begin each movement, but actually in a different tempo, in a different style. So it's exploring or inspired maybe by one single kernel that is explored in different facets. So this is a sonata in E minor by Franz Joseph Haydn in 3 movements. No need for barking. That was the Sonata in E minor from the series Opus 16, the 47th Sonata. It's a very strange numbering and identification system with Haydn, where they are not identified, or they're not numbered sequentially, but rather according to the type of music it is. So all the piano sonatas or the piano works belong to a catalogue of 16 by the musicologist Mr. Holbekin. And this was the 47th one that he thought in terms of the numbers, and they keep muddling them around. But what a charming piece of music. I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was very beautiful. Love that first movement with those beautiful chords, this lovely... I mean, it sounds like something out of almost like a musical. It sounds like something incredibly expressive and romantic, not something that one generally associates with Haydn's music of the early 18th century. And as I said, I approached this piece with a real sense of, I hope, a sense of commitment, a kind of real romanticism almost, and imagination, because often I think Haydn's music is played in a very straight-laced, quite academic way, and it doesn't always seem to take off for me, whereas I think there's so many wonderful ideas in that music. I hope you enjoy that. Even Wendy and Lucy seem to get in on the action there between the movements. I'm going to move on to a composition by Ludwig van Beethoven, keeping in this evening's restrained and quite lyrical, heartfelt, expressive moments, and I'm going to play for you again the second movement from the Sonata, Opus 90. This is a sonata that Beethoven wrote in two movements, the first being quite dramatic in some ways and rhapsodic almost, but the second he writes to be played with heartfelt singing quality. And it really is a beautiful piece of music. It has wonderful detail and wonderful moments, and with it being composed as it is in the last period of Beethoven's life, that lyricism and that personality, that personal touch, and the very restrained manner in which he approaches the music, I think is quite lovely and quite unique. So
we want you to pronounce the name of this piece.
Barry's teasing me now. Well, my German's not that great. Nicht so geschwind und sehr singbar vorgetragen. Barry, how's that? Yeah, so Barry was a von Humboldt scholar, so he always teases me about my Beethoven. My German pronunciation. But basically, not so fast and very lyrically portrayed or brought forward. So the second movement from the Sonata, Opus 90 by Beethoven. The second movement, the second of two movements, that's the way the sonata actually ends, with that slow movement from the Sonata Opus 90 by Ludwig van Beethoven, one of the pieces of music that belongs to what we would call the last period in his life, the last years in a late style. And I think it's something I need to look at more of those sonatas. I have played several of them, but I haven't played them on this live stream program. In fact, someone suggested to me after my rather mammoth effort of last Saturday playing all 12 of the Chopin Etudes, Opus 10. They said, fantastic, thoroughly enjoyed it, great effort. Now let's hear all 32 Beethoven piano sonatas. And that's a real lifetime's work. I have thought about it once or twice in my life. I play about 2/3 of them already. But to play the whole lot and to play it certainly in a sequence within a year or within a couple of weeks would be incredibly demanding. And I'm not sure if it's really the right music for a live stream program. But certainly I think some of those late sonatas might be worth investigating. I'm going to move back to the music of Haydn. As I said earlier, I'm very fascinated by the expressive qualities and the expressivity within the music that one can explore. And I'd like to play a really beautiful piece that's on one of my albums that is available at the moment on Apple Music and Spotify and all major platforms. An album from many years ago called Nocturne Cafe Volume 2. And on this is this particular track, the Adagio from the Sonata in A-flat. It's quite a popular sonata as a whole, but a friend of mine played this when we were at university. And I was just struck by the second movement, and it's a wonderfully expressive and wonderfully beautiful piece of music. Just a single movement on its own. it's a real favorite piece of mine. The slow movement, the middle adagio movement from the Sonata in A flat by Franz Joseph Haydn. Really, it's something that's magical about it. It seems to be kind of prayerful in a way. I would like to play something quite different, but I think which is going to fit into this evening's program, a composition by Franz Liszt, not his flashy, bombastic Hungarian rhapsodies. Those are coming up next week. But I'm going to play a piece from the later years in his life. Liszt had taken minor orders as a priest and loved to visit the villa, be a guest at the Villadesque of the cardinal there. And he was very inspired by the gardens, the scenery, the fountains, and the visual splendor that was present at this wonderful, wonderful place. And so he wrote a piece of music, Les Jeador A La Villadesque, the fountains, Jeador being fountains or literally water play, but the fountains at the Villadesque, and he was inspired by these cascading mechanical fountains that would burst up, and you can see them on YouTube. I mean, I've seen them several times, TV programs and on YouTube. These wonderful fountains that burst into life, cascading, water flowing everywhere in this bubbling water that is kind of mechanized in some way. And in the middle of it, Liszt writes, he quotes a verse from the Gospel of St. John about he who has the water of life has eternal life. And later removed it, but it does give us a sense of the very spiritual connotations or the religious content that Liszt associated with this piece. There's something quite special about it, even though there are lots of notes, and it has got a certain amount of drama, even in the way that it's written and the way that it grips the piano, you might say, has quite a unique quality to it. And I think it's going to fit beautifully into this program now. So this is Les Jeador A La Villadesque by Franz Liszt. But first of all, we're going to have Lucy. Okay, Lucy wants to come up again. Come on, Lucy. Come on, Lucy. What's been happening? What have you been up to? You've been sitting so quietly. Yes. Everything's going perfectly. What did you want to tell me? Oh, okay. We'll remind me later, but that's a very good reminder. Yes. Yes, that's not the right time now. Just now, Luce. Did you have a nice dinner this evening? Yes, you did. Okay, off we go. So it was the Jeador A La Villadesque, the Fountains at the Villadesque by Franz Liszt, a piece of music composed, as I say, in his last years from the third volume of Years of Pilgrimage, pieces of music that were all religiously inspired, and I think a piece of great magic and great depth. I'm going to end off this evening's program with a return to Bach, where we started, and I'm going to end off with the very famous Jesu Joy of Man's Desirings, arranged by Myra Hess. Again, a piece of music for orchestra with choir. And it just brings a close to this evening's in concert with myself, Christopher Daigan. I hope you've enjoyed the selection for the Easter weekend, or Easter weekend performance. We look forward to seeing you on Wednesday for another program of mixed bag of playing a selection of pieces that have that stem or that are related to many of the pieces that I do play, and seeing how I can continue those ideas into some more exploratory fields, as well as, I say, a very exciting program next Saturday when I'll be playing a selection of Liszt Hungarian Rhapsodies as well as music by Mozart. The celebrated Jesu Joy of Man's Desiring, a chorale prelude, well, chorale actually within a piece of orchestral music. I must investigate further as to where that actually comes from, how it fits into the greater scheme of things, by J.S. Bach, arranged by the pianist Myra Hess. It was the last piece of music on this evening's program in concert for our Easter weekend selection. We hope you are having a beautiful and relaxed weekend, and we hope you are doing well and looking after yourselves wherever you are. If you're on our mailing list, you would have received a newsletter today. We've published the next programs as well as some background about the live stream program where we are now after 1 year. We're thinking very carefully about the ways to move forward. If you are supporting us, please do continue. If you aren't supporting us, then please do. We really do need support, and we really do need constant financial backing every month to keep these programs going, especially to keep them going free. So if you're not on our mailing list, please do visit my website, and you'll be able to read the newsletter there, musicrevival.co.za. Thanks to Barry for the technical support this evening, and we hope you've enjoyed the music. We look forward to seeing you on Wednesday as well as next Saturday. Look after yourself, stay well, and keep well.